We live in a world that moves at the speed of updates. Everyone's building something, an idea, a brand, a future, a new identity, and the first instinct is to tell the world, announce it, post it, share it, explain it, seek validation before it's even real. But here's the truth. When you start telling people what you're building before it has a foundation, you risk more than criticism. You risk distraction. Let me ask you something. Why do you feel the need to talk about it? Because deep down, most people talk about what they're building to feel ahead, to feel admired, to feel like they're doing something important. But if the need to be seen is stronger than the desire to build, you won't finish what you started. In a world driven by noise, updates, and self-promotion, silence is becoming one of the rarest and most powerful disciplines. When you are building something meaningful, whether it's a dream, a project, a business, or a new identity, there's a natural temptation to talk about it, to share every step, to seek encouragement, to prove to others that you're doing something valuable. But real strength doesn't come from how loudly you talk about what you're doing. It comes from how silently and consistently you do the work when no one's watching. Silence builds strength because it creates space for focus. When you stop explaining and start executing, you begin to understand the weight of your own vision. You're no longer looking outside for permission or praise. You're not distracted by applause. You're grounded in purpose, not performance. That kind of quiet commitment creates depth, the kind that can't be shaken by criticism or slowed by doubt. There's also a sense of sacredness in silence. When you keep your ideas to yourself during their early stages, you protect them from unnecessary opinions. Most people will not understand your vision because it was not given to them, it was given to you. And sharing too early invites interpretation, interference, or judgment from those who don't see what you see. That noise can dilute your direction. But silence keeps the blueprint pure. Building in silence also demands self-trust. When you choose not to speak about your progress, you learn to rely on your own sense of alignment. You don't need external validation to keep going. You trust your instinct, your strategy, your process, and that builds a different kind of confidence. Not the kind that needs to be seen, but the kind that can stand alone. There's a difference between being quiet and being weak. Weakness avoids responsibility. Silence, when intentional, is strength under control. It's the power of restraint. It's choosing not to show the world your hand before the game is ready. Because when you reveal too much too soon, you not only lose the mystery, you lose the momentum. Every strong structure starts with an invisible foundation. The most powerful ideas, movements, and transformations happen in the dark before they ever reach the light. Think about nature. The seed doesn't bloom on day one. It grows roots deep underground, far from view. No one claps. No one sees. But that quiet stage is what makes the growth possible. Your silence is your root system. It holds you steady. It anchors your work. When you give in to the urge to talk constantly about what you're building, you're often compensating. You're looking for a reassurance. You want people to believe in it because you're not yet sure if you do. But that's the point where you need to go deeper into the work, not broadcast it wider. The most powerful people don't need to announce what they're doing. Their results introduce them. Their presence speaks for itself. Their work carries the weight. They don't need to be loud because they've done the quiet work. And it shows. So if you're building something real, something meaningful, let silence be part of your process. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it deepen your discipline. Let it remind you that the world doesn't need updates. It needs outcomes. You don't owe anyone a preview. Let your consistency be the story. Let your legacy be the proof. In the end, the things built in silence are the things that last. Because they weren't born from ego. They were born from clarity, patience, and truth. And that kind of strength doesn't need to be seen to be real. It just needs to be finished. Validation is a distraction that quietly pulls your energy away from the work that actually matters. It's seductive because it feels good, like approval, praise, recognition. It gives a quick emotional high. But underneath that surface-level reward, validation often works against you. It shifts your focus from creating something meaningful to performing something acceptable. You stop doing the work for the sake of impact and start doing it for applause. When you constantly seek validation, you hand over your power. You allow the opinions and expectations of others to determine your value, your pace, and sometimes even your direction. Suddenly, you're not creating from conviction, you're creating for approval. And the moment your work becomes about being liked instead of being true, it loses its edge. It loses its authenticity. You start polishing what's raw, softening what's bold, reshaping what's honest just to fit into a mold of acceptance. This is dangerous, especially when you're building something original. Most people can't see your vision until it's fully formed. If you rely on their understanding too early, you'll compromise its potential. Feedback can be helpful, but validation is not the same thing as feedback. Feedback is about refinement. Validation is about ego. One makes your work better. The other makes your ego louder. Distraction doesn't always come in the form of failure. Sometimes it's disguised as praise, and when you fall in love with praise, you start building for the audience instead of building for the mission. You begin to edit yourself to match what gets the most attention. You become reactive instead of intentional. That's how many powerful ideas get watered down. They're shaped by public opinion instead of purpose. Validation is also a trap because it's addictive. Once you get a taste, you want more. One compliment leads to another post. One round of applause leads to another performance. You begin to engineer moments to keep the attention coming. And without even realizing it, you've shifted from building something real to maintaining an image. And maintaining an image is exhausting. It drains your creativity, your honesty, and your courage. What you really need is clarity. When you're clear about your purpose, you don't need constant validation. Clarity doesn't beg for approval. It creates direction. It gives you the ability to say, this is what I'm building, and I'm okay if not everyone understands it right now. That level of conviction keeps you moving when the world is quiet or even critical. Because at the end of the day, your work isn't for everyone. It's for the people who need it, the people it was made for. It's also important to remember that true progress is often invisible at first. The most transformative parts of your journey won't be Instagram worthy. They won't get a round of applause. They'll happen in silence, in discomfort, in moments of doubt and persistence. If you're addicted to validation, you'll quit during these stages because they don't look impressive. But if you understand that greatness is built in the shadows, you'll stay with it even when no one's watching. You don't need a crowd to make progress. You don't need praise to move forward. You don't need likes to be worthy. All you need is a vision that matters, a process you trust, and the discipline to stay with it, even when the world is quiet. The truth is, you're not here to be understood. You're here to build something that lasts. And that takes more than attention. It takes focus, commitment, and the willingness to stay grounded when applause is absent. So let go of the need to be seen. Let go of the craving to be approved, and return to the work. That's where your strength is. That's where your future is. The outcome will speak louder than the validation ever could. Every vision starts as a whisper. It's fragile at first, just an idea, a sense of direction, a feeling that something needs to exist. And like all fragile things, it must be protected. When you're building something that matters, your greatest responsibility in the beginning is not to explain it, justify it, or showcase it. It's to protect it. Too often, we feel the urge to share our ideas prematurely. We think that talking about it makes it more real, or that gaining support will give it momentum. But the truth is, when you expose a vision too early, you open it up to opinions, doubts, and distortions that it may not be strong enough to handle. Not every voice deserves access to what you're building. Not every mind is capable of seeing what you see. Your vision is a seed. And seeds don't grow in open air. They grow when planted, hidden, and nurtured. They need time in the dark to develop roots. If you dig it up every few days to show people it's real, you'll kill it before it has a chance to take form. The early stage of any mission, business, project, or personal growth is not about proving anything. It's about protecting it long enough for it to become strong. When you constantly talk about your vision, you invite too many hands into your garden. People will offer advice, suggestions, or concerns, not always out of malice, but from their own fears and limitations. And if you're not careful, you'll start to shift your vision to make it more acceptable, more understandable, more normal. You'll trade authenticity for safety, and the original spark that made it powerful in the first place begins to fade. Protecting your vision also means setting boundaries. That includes the people you involve, the information you share, and the time you give away. Not everyone in your life will understand what you're doing, and they don't need to. Some will misunderstand it. Some will mock it. Some will dismiss it. That's not your problem. Your job is not to convince the world. Your job is to build the thing that the world will one day need. The pressure to explain can be strong. We live in a world of transparency, of constant updates and personal branding, but transparency is not the same as integrity. You can have pure intentions and still choose to be private. You don't owe your process to anyone. Let your actions be the proof. Let your results be the message. When you protect the vision, you create the space for it to grow without interruption. And protecting the vision isn't just about shielding it from others, it's about protecting it from yourself. From your own impatience, from your fear of failure, from your need to compare, because your own insecurities will try to rush the process. They'll whisper lies like you're behind, or you need to show progress, or you should be farther along. But building something that lasts takes time. It takes solitude. It takes trust. You must learn to be faithful to the process, even when there is no recognition. You must commit to the work when it's boring, when it's slow, when it's invisible. That's where the real progress is made, not in the highlights, but in the hidden hours. Your vision deserves protection, not because it's weak, but because it's rare. Because it's different. Because it was given to you and no one else will carry it the way you can. If you protect it now, it will carry you later. If you defend it in silence, it will speak loudly when it's ready. So resist the urge to share too early. Build in peace. Move in quiet confidence. Trust that what you are creating will one day be seen, not because you announced it, but because it became undeniable. Protect the vision and one day it will protect you. There is a kind of quiet power in letting results speak. In a world obsessed with announcements, updates, and public proof of progress, choosing to stay silent and focused feels almost rebellious. But it's in that silence that some of the most powerful transformations occur, because when you let your results speak, they say everything that words never could, and they say it louder with more credibility and with lasting impact. The need to constantly explain what you're doing often stems from insecurity. We want to be believed. We want people to understand. We want to show we're not wasting time, that we're serious, that we're doing something big. So we talk, we post, we try to convince others with words. But when you truly believe in what you're building, you don't need to broadcast every step. You just do the work. You stay the course. And eventually the results speak for you. Letting results speak isn't about staying quiet for the sake of mystery. It's about focus. Every time you try to explain what you're working on, you expend energy that could have gone into the work itself. And more often than not, explaining becomes performing. You begin to shape your process to meet others' expectations, not your own internal compass. That shift is dangerous. It waters down innovation. It delays growth. It replaces authenticity with approval. Real impact doesn't need a marketing plan in the beginning. It needs discipline. It needs patience. It needs the kind of work ethic that shows up day after day without needing a round of applause. The truth is, no one really believes what you say you're going to do. They believe what you actually do. Results are what build credibility. Not promises, not vision boards, not grand declarations. This is why many of the most successful people aren't loud about their process. They've learned that when you spend all your energy trying to sound impressive, you lose the edge that makes you effective. It's the quiet ones who are in the lab every day, making small changes, pushing through setbacks, perfecting their craft. Those are the ones who eventually show up with something undeniable. And when they do, the world takes notice, not because they demanded it, but because they earned it. Letting results speak also protects your mission. It allows your work to grow without distortion. No outside voices watering it down. No premature exposure weakening the structure. By the time the world sees it, it's strong. It's real. It speaks volumes, not just about the project, but about who you are, the kind of discipline you have, the consistency you showed, the integrity you carried throughout the journey. There is no louder message than a quiet person who shows up with results. No explanation, no justification, just presence, performance, and proof. The world has enough noise. It has enough people telling us what they might do, what they plan to launch, what they're about to create. What the world needs more of is proof, tangible, clear, undeniable work that came from someone who didn't chase attention, they chased excellence. So resist the urge to explain. Don't try to win people over with your words. Let the product, the outcome, the impact, do the talking. Because when it's real, When it's powerful, people will notice. And you won't have to convince them, the results will say it all. Build quietly. Improve relentlessly. And when it's ready, let it speak. Let the transformation show. Let the impact spread, because nothing speaks more clearly than work that was done with focus, without compromise, and without needing to be seen every step of the way. Let results speak, and let them echo longer than your voice ever could. There is a quiet danger in slipping into performance mode. It doesn't always start loud. It creeps in when you begin to notice what gets attention, when you start tweaking your actions to please the crowd, when you find yourself more concerned with how something looks than how true it is. Performance mode is seductive because it rewards you quickly, applause, recognition, validation, but it robs you slowly. Over time, it pulls you away from authenticity and anchors you in expectation. When you're in performance mode, you're not building from conviction anymore. You're building from pressure. You're shaping your behavior, your words, even your identity to meet the standards of whoever's watching. Instead of doing what's real, you start doing what works. Instead of following your vision, you start chasing reactions. And what was once a meaningful journey becomes a stage show. The problem with performance mode is that it looks productive. From the outside, everything seems right. You're showing up, you're getting attention, people are talking, but on the inside, something starts to feel off. You feel disconnected from the work. You feel like you're always on, even when you're tired. You start second-guessing your decisions, wondering if people will approve. It's exhausting to constantly curate yourself for an audience, especially when that audience changes by the day. Genuine growth doesn't happen in performance mode. Real progress happens in the shadows, in the quiet places, in the hours no one sees. It happens when there's no feedback, no likes, no applause, just commitment, just truth. The most transformative work comes from a place of stillness and honesty, not from a spotlight. When you're truly focused on your purpose, you don't need to perform, you simply do. You move with clarity, not with theatrics. You make decisions based on alignment, not applause. And the irony is, the more authentic you are, the more rooted in real intention, the more powerful your impact becomes. People may not understand it immediately, but when the work is done right, it resonates deeper and lasts longer. To avoid performance mode, you have to stop building for visibility and start building for value. You have to choose discipline over display. You have to be okay with being misunderstood in the short term because you're playing a longer game. And most importantly, you have to return to your why, the real reason you started. That's what keeps you grounded when the noise gets loud. It also means being okay with silence. Being okay when the world doesn't see you. Being okay when there's no spotlight. Because the work doesn't need to be witnessed to be worthy. The most important breakthroughs often come in isolation, not because you're hiding, but because you're incubating. You're protecting the process. You're nurturing something that's not ready for display. Avoiding performance mode also means surrounding yourself with people who value truth over image, people who challenge you to stay real, not just to look impressive, people who remind you that your worth isn't based on your performance, but on your integrity. Those are the people who keep you aligned, especially when you're tempted to drift into performance for approval. There's nothing wrong with being seen. There's nothing wrong with sharing your work. But there's a big difference between sharing from strength and performing from fear. One is rooted in purpose. The other is driven by insecurity. One builds legacies. The other builds illusions. So take a breath. Step off the stage. Close the curtain if you have to. Get back to the work that matters, not because it's being watched, but because it's worth doing. The truth doesn't need to be dressed up. The mission doesn't need a mask. You don't need to perform, you just need to be real. Let go of performance mode. Reclaim your focus. Reclaim your honesty. Reclaim your peace. Because the world doesn't need another performance. It needs people who are grounded, committed, unshakably real. Discipline over display is a mindset, a choice, and a commitment to something deeper than attention. In today's world, it's easy to fall into the trap of appearances, of showcasing every move, posting every step, and measuring success by how much it's seen rather than how deeply it's built. But when you focus more on display than discipline, you lose the very foundation that makes greatness possible. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't ask for applause. It's not concerned with aesthetics. It's concerned with growth, with improvement, with repetition, Even when it's boring, it's doing what needs to be done long after the excitement fades. It's about showing up when there's no audience, no validation, and no immediate reward. Only the inner promise that the process matters. Display, on the other hand, is driven by authenticity. It's about being seen. It's about appearing successful. It's about curating an image that looks like progress, even when it's hollow on the inside. And the problem with chasing display is that it becomes an endless performance. You start working to impress, not to improve. You're building an identity that looks strong but can't withstand pressure because it lacks the resilience forged in discipline. Real strength is forged in the moments no one sees. When you choose to wake up early to write, to train, to study, when you sit with failure, reflect, and adjust quietly, when you reject shortcuts because they compromise the long-term goal, these moments don't look good on camera. They don't go viral. But they matter because they shape you into someone capable of sustaining success, not just tasting it briefly. Discipline teaches you patience. It reminds you that mastery takes time, that excellence isn't created in bursts of motivation, but in long stretches of repetition. Display rushes you. It pressures you to show results now, to look impressive even when the work isn't ready. It feeds your ego, not your growth. When you choose discipline over display, you take control of your time, your habits, and your standards. You stop working for attention and start working for alignment. You stop asking, will this impress people, and start asking, will this make me better? That single shift changes everything. It grounds your actions in purpose, not popularity. It's also freeing, because once you stop needing to be seen, you're no longer trapped by the expectations of others. You give yourself permission to be a beginner, to take your time, to fail in private, to evolve without performance. You become more concerned with being real than appearing perfect. And that authenticity gives you power. Discipline is sustainable. It builds roots. It creates a foundation that won't crack under pressure. Display, on the other hand, is exhausting. You're always trying to keep up, always trying to maintain an image. It's a cycle that leads to burnout, anxiety, and disconnection from your true purpose. Ask yourself, are you building something lasting or just something that looks good right now? Are you showing up for yourself or for the crowd? Are your daily habits aligned with your goals, or are they designed to impress? Choosing discipline means you're okay being underestimated. You're okay being overlooked. You understand that the real payoff doesn't come from likes, applause, or attention. It comes from becoming someone who can deliver when it counts. So choose the hard path. Choose consistency over visibility. Choose substance over style. Choose depth over decoration. Choose discipline over display, because the person who practices in silence eventually performs with power. The one who embraces the unseen grind will always outlast the one who relies on surface-level praise. In the end, it's not what you show the world, it's what you've built when no one was watching that truly defines you. Let the world see the result when it's ready. Until then, choose discipline. It will take you farther than display ever could.